Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
With Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to... Has anyone seen the bride and groom?
Sorry, we're here. We were getting lucky in the limo and we lost track of time.
No, Lucky Land Casino, with cash prizes that add up quicker than a guest registry.
In that case, I pronounce you lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Daily bonuses are waiting. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Welcome to Pretty Lies and Alibis, a podcast dedicated to the Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell case. Join us as we seek the truth and travel the long road to justice. Hey everybody, it is almost 7 o'clock on the East Coast. The hearing just wrapped up and we wanted to do part 2 of our little special episode today. So right out of the gate, what happened? Is Chad going to trial?
Yes, he is.
Yeah, Judge Edens found that there was enough evidence to go to trial in spite of Chad's attorney asking for the charges to be dismissed.
After sitting through that, I mean, I know he's his defense attorney and that's his goal, but
oh my goodness.
After sitting through all that, I don't know how you can even ask that question.
Yeah, I try to be really even-tempered with people, and especially people I don't know, but I feel like I need anger management after having to listen to Pryor all day. He made me angry, just, ugh.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he's trying to show he's not playing, but, man, I tell you what, he probably might want to change his tone before a jury trial because I don't think jurors are going to like him very much.
Yeah, I don't think one juror would like him.
No, and that could be a problem.
Yeah.
For him and Chad both. But we left off at lunch, and Agent Daniels, who is the gentleman with the FBI, was the one that sort of zeroed in on these places of interest in Chad Daybell's yard on the day they found the kids' bodies. And so after lunch, it was time for cross-examination by my favorite lawyer, Mr. Pryor. So after we got back into the hearing, Pryor was asking about how many people were at the scene of the excavation.
Yeah, and he keeps asking that question.
I know.
And if somebody out there can answer that question, if you're law enforcement or whatever, you're somebody, I just don't understand the relevance of how many people were there.
Well, I tell you, I'm not a legal analyst, and I think you guys know that what we say is sort of with limited knowledge of the legal system or what I've learned over the years. I don't have a degree, but it almost feels like Pryor is setting it up to where at some point he can cry foul on somebody handling evidence. That's just where I sort of see him going with it because he's asking for administrative logs. How do they work? Who has access to them?
Yeah, like
how many people were there? I think what he's going to say is because Daniel said maybe 50 to 100. I think what Pryor eventually is going to do is say somebody tampered with evidence. I don't know, maybe not, but it just, to me, that's sort of where I see this going. I don't know, but...
Okay, I thought it was funny. When he asked the question, what is an administrator log? Larry shook his head like, are you serious?
Larry cracks me up in court. Now, I know this is super sad, serious stuff, and we've definitely seen Larry break down a few times, but whenever Pryor says something that's just really stupid, Larry starts laughing.
Yeah.
Larry is my spirit animal. I'm just going to say it.
Yeah.
I love Larry. I would love to just sit and hang out with him. I bet he would be a blast.
Yeah, Larry and Kay both. And we said they show their what they're thinking on their face.
Oh, they do. Even with a mask on.
Yeah, you can tell.
Like, it's hilarious. And speaking of Kay, I would love to know the color of her fingernail polish. Just saying. It was very pretty. Purple.
You did say that.
Sorry.
The other cool thing is you see Larry, he's like a social butterfly.
Oh, yeah.
So when they come back in the court, like he's normally in a corner or somewhere talking to somebody.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how my grandpa was. I know how that is.
Yeah.
You can never, see him alone.
Yep.
Yeah, I love him.
So are we at like where Pryor says what? Like he's asking the dimensions of the pet graveyard?
Yeah, so he really zeroed in on this, and I knew where he was going with it real quick.
You called it out.
I called it.
Yeah.
So he's talking to Daniels about surveying the crime scene, and so Pryor says, hey, regarding the pet cemetery, you said it was 10 by 10. And he says this phrase whenever he thinks he's got something on somebody, and it gets on my nerves. But he said, would it surprise you if the area was actually 20 by 20?
Yeah. And when he said that, I'm thinking, do you mean that Chad showed him the pet cemetery area?
Yeah, and
he measured it, or was he talking about the area that Daniels thought was 10 by 10 was actually 20 by 20? Like,
yeah, I don't know. I think, obviously where he's going with that is you didn't dig enough in the yard to find a raccoon, and there's a raccoon on that property somewhere. Because what he's trying to do is he's trying to completely explain the text that Chad sent to Tammy after Alex had left, after the body was buried, about the raccoon. And I think what he's trying to do with this is just discredit that, or not discredit, but to explain it as, hey, the FBI dropped the ball. You guys didn't dig far enough to find the raccoon carcass.
Yeah.
That was where I was going.
Yeah. But I can imagine that cadaver dog, I mean, I know they hit on dead bodies, but the way Daniels said it was almost like they covered the area. And I know they had I think they had GPR out there, ground penetrating radar or whatever, the little thing, it's like a lawnmower, but it shows you the depths.
It's like a lawnmower.
It does look like every time I see one, they use it.
Yeah, it really does.
It does look like a lawnmower, see?
Yeah.
I would think that they used all that.
Yeah.
So they had the evidence. I mean, they had the text. They knew. So I wonder,
what does Pryor think that's going to accomplish? Okay, so we found a raccoon, so he's off the hook.
Yeah.
No, that's not how this works.
No, exactly.
But look, I mean, Chad is so guilty, and we have seen a few things that we didn't know, but nothing compared to what they have up their sleeve for trial. I
can imagine.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it's going to be huge.
Yeah, I may have to live over here for 2 weeks.
Well, you can stay in the studio. There's a couch out here.
Yeah, right there. Yeah. Because what we've spent 2 days.
Oh yeah.
16 witnesses in 2 days, and some of them didn't even go through. They're just logging evidence, right?
Yeah.
So they're like, okay, is this document that? Yes. Did you? Yes. Yes. And then they leave the stand. So.
Yeah, but so Daniels just. Obviously he says we didn't excavate the whole property, and Pryor says, so you can't say there's not a raccoon buried somewhere.
Yeah.
I would love to see them go back out today and dig up the entire 4 acres.
Search warrant.
For a raccoon, and say, yeah, it's not there.
Yeah.
But Pryor said, would it surprise you, again, to learn that I've been out there many times? And would you disagree there are ground and pieces of property that are disturbed beyond what you designated as a pet cemetery? I mean, it's just, I understand why he's doing what he's doing, but good grief, he annoys the fool out of me.
Okay. I mean, I've had a lot of animals in my family's life, right? So we've had a lot of animals pass away. So, I mean, they can't excavate the whole yard. What was that? Was it 3 acres there?
It was 4 is what Pryor said.
Okay, so 4 acres. I mean, what are you going to do?
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's.
But I wonder, talking about the raccoon, I wonder if I don't know, people that specialize in that stuff can date when it was. You know what I mean?
I don't know. I
mean we all know it's a lie. He didn't really shoot a raccoon, but if they happen to find one.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. I mean, I know that raccoons can attack ducks.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess maybe that's why he went that route, because Tammy Daybell loved ducks and had ducks on the property. But
Here,
go ahead.
No, go ahead. You'll forget.
No,
You better
I'll
go.
forget, and I've already forgot. So go ahead.
Okay. So my thing is this. So he texts Tammy and says he buried a raccoon. So the ground where they searched, Daniels testified that they surveyed the whole property, and these were the areas that had the newest, where something had been buried. So wouldn't you think that would be where Chad buried the raccoon?
I mean, you would think. I'm sure they used overhead satellite imagery, and it would have, even a small area. I mean, I don't know what the FBI has at their disposal, but I don't. It's just a defense mechanism. It's grasping for straws, because the evidence is going to be overwhelmingly against Chad once it all comes out.
Yeah.
And I don't think we'll be talking about a raccoon anymore.
No,
honestly.
Daniel says it was a dog and a cat.
Yeah, right. And then Pryor got really mad. At Daniels. He objects to the witness and says he wants the answer to be. He wants to strike the answer. He says he's frustrated, and this is kind of around the raccoon thing and the fight about the area of the pet cemetery. And the judge, he's not striking the answer. The judge said Daniels was explaining what you asked of him.
He asked him to explain what was the term? It's the term he was using for the grave.
It starts with a C.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, I know. What
I
you're
can't
talking
think.
about.
See, the word just left me, but it's going to bother me the rest of the time. Anyways, clandestine. That's it.
Oh,
I think it was clandestine, wasn't it?
That doesn't sound familiar, but
Okay,
I think you might have butchered the name, but you're
did.
on the right path.
That's
we
the
know what
southern
you mean.
pronunciation for whatever Daniel says.
What did you say?
Clandestine. I think that's what
clandestine.
That's right. Hey.
Okay, yeah. So, anyways, a grave.
So yeah, he's describing the grave.
Can we just say a grave?
Yeah, it's a grave.
Okay.
So he's describing it, and like Pryor interrupts him.
Yeah. Oh, totally interrupts him, which the judge had to tell him several times today to quit interrupting.
Okay, I don't know if you can catch it, but if y'all are watching it, the court reporter is in the glass, so you can see her. And if somebody talks and overtalks somebody, she'll shake her head. I caught her a couple times. She's like shaking her head, like no.
Yeah. But okay, so then they were talking about how deep was burial site 1, and Daniel said that it was about 1.5 feet, and then where Tylee was buried was 2 feet deep. That kind of surprised me. That the graves were not any further down. But here's one thing I noticed. When Pryor went into the talk about the fire pit in relation to where the pet cemetery was, and he asked if they found any ash in the soil, do you think maybe he is going to eventually say the bodies were not burned at that property? Because that's kind of how I felt he was kind of setting this up to be.
I totally agree.
Yeah, he said, would it surprise you to learn the fire pit was 15 feet from the pet cemetery?
Yeah. And we both said, oh, I wish we would go down that road. We want to hear.
Right.
But they didn't. But he doesn't have to yet. So that may come out, in the big trial, that they go into more detail what they found in the fire pit. Because they really didn't say anything they found there.
Right. But Pryor said that he went over the pictures and he saw no sign of ash in the soil. And after that, they were finished. But the next few witnesses just came in and essentially were with Fremont or Madison County. I think just Fremont. And they were just talking about getting evidence from that house in January, which led to Mr. Liu, who was in cell phone analysis with the FBI. They were talking about this LG phone that had the distinct phone case.
Yeah, I thought they described that, the front and the back.
Yeah.
It was brought in. It was like Exhibit 28 and 29. It was the front of it and then the back of it.
I'm going to say Mr. Liu was the best witness as far as speaking into the microphone clearly.
Yeah.
He nailed it.
Yeah.
Sometimes I felt like the judge saying, can you speak up? So essentially, Wood was very careful to walk each witness through the chain of custody and their procedures to make sure evidence wasn't tampered with. Because I wonder if Wood sort of felt like Pryor was going down that road of eventually saying, well, something was mishandled. It's got to be thrown out.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, it would be terrible if some big piece of evidence was thrown out, because then you can't bring that to the jury. But yeah, I don't know. So they just talk about the policies they have in place to protect the evidence. And the phone was locked. So Lou had to send the phone to the FBI to have it unlocked. And it ended up being Tammy Daybell's phone. The little LG phone.
Okay.
It was Tammy Daybell's phone that they had found at the house. And they were going through how they knew it was her phone based on group texts and pictures and messages and that sort of thing. And I kind of thought for a minute, and I tweeted this out, that are they going to say that maybe Lori had that phone or something, because they were talking about messages being sent to that phone after Tammy had died, phone calls and messages.
Yeah,
but I don't think that's the case. I think, incoming calls could be telemarketers or something like that.
Yeah.
But they only talked about that one text. I feel sure we'll probably hear more at trial about what was on that phone. But Pryor does not want this text message to be anything big in this. And I think he's just going to have to accept the fact that it is.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the testimony. I mean, the one thing that was cool was the last witness of the day, or no. I don't know if it was the last witness. Maybe it was. The guy who put 2 and 2 together about the last sighting of Tylee and then remembered that text on Tammy Daybell's phone.
Yes.
That dude is smart.
Yeah, he was. He's a young guy, the blonde-headed guy, right?
Yeah, he was, the younger guy.
Yeah.
But essentially he said that he had actually worked with the tip line after the FBI put out there the picture of JJ and Tylee in Yellowstone, asking if anybody had been in Yellowstone that day to please send any pictures or videos you had to the FBI. So he was working those tips, and he remembered that it was on the 8th of September that picture was taken. And so he's the one in charge of looking at this data from Tammy Daybell's phone and says, whoa, I remember this really weird text the day after she was last seen. And so he calls investigators and gives them that text, which has come in a very big way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously Edens said there is enough to go to trial. So we will go to trial.
And this is less than half of the evidence.
Oh, this isn't even half. I think that obviously the prosecutor is not going to put anything more out there than he has to, because then you give Pryor and Mark Means a little inside into what you have. And I know they get discovery, but I guess the angle may be different of how they're going to approach the evidence. So I think Wood did a great job. He drove everything home, and when Pryor would sort of get the witnesses on a path, Wood would redirect and bring them back in or make his point. But when is that arraignment for Chad? This goes up to district court, so Edens will not be presiding.
Yeah, it's August 21st.
Yeah.
And it will be on Zoom.
Yeah, and it's going to be remote. There will be a new judge. And at 9 a.m. their time, which will be 11 a.m. on the 21st, and we'll cover that. The next big thing is Monday. What's going on?
Yep, we get to walk through the same thing with Lori.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that, because I think there will be a little bit of a different dynamic with Lori being in the hot seat, because she is going to have to sit and listen to her lies in real time in that courtroom with Kay, Larry, and the world watching.
Yep.
And I'm very curious to see how she reacts. And we totally think they're separated at this point. Chad clearly, to me, is going in his own direction and is going to turn on her.
Yeah.
So how's Lori going to be as a whole? I mean, she's alone in this now.
Yeah, we haven't seen her since the 22nd, so
right, 'cause
we haven't seen her after that.
She waived her appearance at the hearing about the recording and broadcasting the trial.
Yeah.
And the only time we saw her before that was the hearing where some people suggested maybe she was emotional. I'd heard from somebody I'd read a post from somebody that said in the courtroom, somebody verified that she did have tears in her eyes. I don't know. But she's alone at this point. If they've truly turned on each other, if you think about it, Her kids are dead. She has no support from her family, from what we know.
Yeah.
Chad, she's got to turn on him for the first time in her life. Lori is going to have to stand alone. And I think that could break her big time.
Yeah. And I wonder if any of her family will come to court.
I don't know. I mean, the only people we saw were, obviously Kay and Larry. It looked like maybe there were some investigators or FBI people in there. I don't know. They just looked like they were investigators. I mean, I'm assuming, but I doubt it. I don't see her mom sitting there. I don't see her brother, who she said was going to kill her, sitting there.
Yeah. I'm just wondering if Summer and her mom will show.
I mean, that'll be interesting to see, but I mean, they're still eating crow from that last interview. I was watching that not too long ago, and the way her mom just threw her head back and would laugh at the suggestion that Alex was the family hitman or that Lori was a bad mother. I mean, I mean, we kind of know. I mean, we knew before, but now it's been proven that those two were up to no good and they're evil.
Yeah.
I don't see anybody coming for her. I think Kay and Larry will be there to represent JJ and Tylee.
Yep.
I just I don't know. It'll be interesting to see.
So the jail call.
Oh yeah. Good job, Fruit Loop. She worked on that for an hour. We've uploaded that to our YouTube. Fruit Loop cleaned that audio up as best she could. Yeah. And we have tweeted out a transcript from what we can gather. There's a couple of spots we aren't sure.
Yeah, we've went back and forth trying to figure out what we hear and what we don't hear. So
yeah, I mean, we were just sort of back and forth, and she said, I hear this, and I said, I hear that. And then I think we sort of came to a common ground. I have on the Twitter page the transcript. Our Twitter is at Pretty Lies Alibi, and I did mark beside where we weren't 100% sure.
Yeah.
But I was surprised to hear that, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you what was unnerving for me is to hear her, the way she carried on with him, just how she talks.
Yeah.
Knowing that they're deceased, they're buried on his property. Mm-hmm. And she still talks like that.
She was so carefree. You
wouldn't have thought anything.
You wouldn't have even thought she was in jail.
Now, she is being recorded, and she does know she's being recorded. But I would think there would be a little bit of nervousness.
Yeah.
But no.
Hey, you never know. I mean, she may be like the one in jail that everybody wants to talk to. Not because they like her, but just when they get out, they can say, oh, yeah, she was my jailhouse buddy. She may be like a rock star in there. We don't know. Yep. I doubt it. They say she stays in her cell and reads scripture all day.
Yeah.
But it's a big deal. I mean, Lori has turned on every husband in a very nasty way, which times two has resulted in death. I'm so convinced that there was something with Joe Ryan. But even if she didn't kill him, she probably killed his spirit with how nasty that custody battle was and the allegations that came out of that.
Yeah.
So I've always said I think she'll turn on Chad, and I think maybe Chad turned on her first.
Yeah, I would like to. I mean, it's going to be interesting to hear Means on Monday. Up until now, it kind of seems like he couldn't convince her of anything. I mean, that's just what I get.
Right.
But, I mean, I'm sure he's going to tell her this is what he's saying, and this is what this is what you're going to face.
Yeah. I mean, he has to be talking to her now about, she has to understand the penalties for all of her evil deeds, which is most likely the rest of her life will be in prison.
Yeah.
And I just wonder, I do think she's evil. I think she's mentally ill. I think it's kind of all the above. I would love to know, what is she feeling now? I mean, she really probably has to feel like she has nobody in this world.
Yeah.
Nobody. I mean, I can't think of anybody that would be there to support her. Not even her mom. I'm going to say nobody from her family shows up. If they do, they're going to get judged by me. I'll tell you that. I'm going to watch them every second.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, and you have to think too, she's made an accusation against her brother that has just come out and made public. So
that we know was a lie.
Right. This guy, her brother seems to be a decent guy. So what's her family thinking with her telling people he's trying to kill her? So I just don't see any support for Lori.
Yeah.
And but what do you think evidence wise with Lori? Do you think more of the same?
Yeah, I think it's going to be more of the same. We know like the body cam stuff and all that.
Yeah.
And I don't know what else they'll have.
I don't know.
You'll have Melanie Gibb again.
Yeah.
And
David Warwick.
You'll have basically the same people, I would think.
Yeah, I just kind of feel like they're going to have to give a little something extra in regards to Lori because the cell phone pings were easy because that was Chad's property.
Yep.
But there's been nothing really other than being named as a co-conspirator in the probable cause that is evidence-based.
Yeah, you're right. They're going to have to put out more stuff showing and proving where she was.
Right. They're going to it's going to be maybe text messages or her cell phone pings or something. But I haven't seen anything that just implicates Lori directly on an evidence level, just on a common sense level, all day long.
Yeah.
So I think we'll learn a little more next week about Lori and what they have on her.
Yeah, I think so too.
But I tell you, I'm going to enjoy this little break because these last 2 days have been really tiring.
Yes.
I mean, I'm trying to be mom in between breaks and my kids are big.
In between, you're being mom, like not in between breaks.
That's
like,
true.
When they come in.
That's true. They bust up in here but that's cool. I mean, I'm a mom, but so I plan on hanging out with my youngins the rest of the week and just making it about them before we have 2 more days where we're stuck in the studio and, telling them to heat up a Lunchable.
make your own sandwich.
Yeah. I mean, my youngest is
they're
9.
old enough.
If they can't make a sandwich, come on.
Yeah, they're old enough.
You would think their arms were broken.
Oh, I know, right?
Yeah, I love them though. They're great. They're very understanding, and I did this years ago, and so they know how it goes when there's a hearing, and they're very patient kids. So
yeah, I saw I loved when the judge announces, that it's going to district court. There's enough evidence. Like Larry's hand goes up.
Yeah, it was kind of a victory, sort of a. All right, we're there.
Yeah, and they made one statement when they came out. They said they would make one statement because they could, how Larry is. He loves to talk.
I think maybe Kay might have limited him to one statement.
Because he looked at, I don't know who he looked at, but he said, we're just making one statement.
Yeah.
And he made a statement that they were thankful and everything, and they hope that next week they can stand in the same spot and say the same thing. So.
Oh, that's really sweet. I think Larry looks better than when we saw him last month at the or a month and a half ago at the property. We were just so worried about how he looked, and understandably, it's just incredibly sad and heartbreaking. But Larry looks better these days, so we've been worried. It was nice to see him sort of looking healthier, and our thoughts are always going to be with those families. Their loss is so much greater than what we feel, and but I think justice is beginning.
I'm going to tell you what hit me last night was just the witnesses in the case, and not just Melanie Gibb and David and some of the other, but the officers who they have to remember all this stuff.
Yeah.
And then they have other cases.
Right.
And they still have to work. So it's got to be stressful.
Yeah. And I think, too, just the emotional toll of what they found that day and those people who were there. And I even think about Brandon having to identify JJ with the photo.
Yeah.
I mean, that had to have been so hard for him. And I don't know. We haven't heard anything about Melanie Pulaski lately. I'm really curious what's up with her. I think this was probably very real for her. This had to be a moment yesterday and today watching these official proceedings. She has to be panicking. She has to just be thinking, I'm next.
And will we see that as part of the evidence coming out next week?
Maybe.
Is something that Lori's done or said or whatever, is that going to bring her in the mix? So
I think if not next week at some point. We know she's being investigated, and there's so much more to come. Once these preliminaries are over, don't forget, we've got Tammy Daybell's autopsy results. We've got any digital evidence linking them. That's already been sent up to the Attorney General.
Yeah.
We've got Charles, potentially Joe Ryan. We've probably got insurance fraud, Social Security fraud, and God knows what else.
The list goes on and on.
I tell you, it's you can't say all those in one breath. It's a lot. So this hearing yesterday and today and what's coming next week, this is just a sliver of what's to come. This case is going to be around for years.
Yeah.
There's delays. I mean, this thing, I've said all along, 2-3 years before this goes to trial.
Yeah.
Because you're looking at just, it's like a 12 to 24 months in a normal homicide case, not to mention one where, good grief, it crosses state lines and you got multiple felonies, multiple deaths. I just think this is going to be going on for a very long time unless they get charged and they just plead guilty. I don't see it happening. Lori is going to play the victim. Her defense is going to be victim.
Yeah. But
So-
I want to say this. If Pryor asked the questions, can you give me a date? I need more foundation. When we get 2 years down the road, like, it's going to take forever.
I'm going to pull a concrete truck up outside of his office and say, here's some concrete
There's
for your foundation.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I have one thing to point out. I was correct on the clandestine.
Were you really?
I looked it up. Yes.
Aren't you smart?
Yeah. See.
Look at you.
See. It's exactly.
What
like-
kind of grade did you get in English, though?
Oh, I made A's in English.
Did you really?
Yeah.
What'd you make in math?
We don't want to go there.
Nah, we'll skip that
C
question.
minus.
I object to that question.
Yeah. Can you give me more foundation?
Don't ask me
man.
the square root of the area of anything.
Yeah. Okay. So, in closing this out, who was your number one witness the last 2 days?
Melanie Gibb.
Definitely.
By far. She is going to be the glue that kind of like puts all the pieces together at the end of the day, I think.
Yeah.
Digital evidence, forensic evidence, yeah, that's all important, but you have somebody who was there for a lot of this. And what she has said, I think, is probably not even close to what she knows. And that's because prosecution's not putting out all their cards on the table right now. So I'm looking for more text messages that Melanie has saved. I'm looking for more conversations maybe that she's had. Although, I don't know, once they went to Hawaii, I think they pretty much cut off contact with everybody. But who knows what Melanie has as far as digital evidence goes, or just in conversation, or things that were said and done before the deaths. We just don't know. But I think Melanie, she was definitely an amazing witness. And I think I've read a lot of people have a newfound respect for her.
Yeah.
After seeing her in the hearing. And then today, when she was throwing it right back to Pryor, I mean, I was like, you go, girl. Don't let him talk to you that way.
Exactly.
So I think, Melanie Gibb, definitely an amazing witness. And there were a lot of other people on that witness list. So when this goes to trial, whenever it goes to trial, I think we're going to have a lot of really powerful witnesses like Melanie.
Yeah.
But for this, she definitely was the one that I didn't miss a word.
I totally agree.
Yeah. She has to be stressed.
Yeah.
But I'm sure she's relieved, at least for a few days. Then she has to go back and face Lori, which may be a little more stressful just because they were friends. They're girlfriends. So there's just, I don't know. I just feel like maybe that testimony for her is going to be a little more difficult than Chad.
Yeah.
And
But
so
I think she'll be good. I think she will too. Yeah. That's mine as well. I totally agree.
Mm-hmm.
I looked and I got to thinking about this today. There's been so much tearing down and heartache and hurt and through this whole thing. But then you see the relationships that have been built coming together with this negative, horrible thing that happened with Larry and Kay and Melanie and Brandon and just all in the support that they've all received.
Yeah.
Because all this with Colby and, just different things like that. It's heartwarming to see that come together out of all this negative and just horrible situation.
Yeah. And there's a lot of negative directed towards the family out there too. We really avoid it like the plague.
Yeah.
But I think the good outweighs the bad. And, we support the family. We've talked about trying to go to a memorial, one of the public memorials. We may do a little road trip. I told Fruit Loop we should, load the family up, my kids and everybody, and go up there and go to Yellowstone or something. My kids feel like they know these kids. They've heard us talk about it so much. So I would love to make it a family thing. We definitely would love to go up for trial. We'll just have to see where we are in a year or two.
Yep.
But that's kind of all we have today. I think, next week's going to be just as interesting, maybe a little more. I think we're just going to get some more evidence that's going to fill in a few gaps about Lori and maybe they sort of give us an indication of what her role was or what they think her role may have been.
Yep.
And that's going to be a big deal. But if anything happens this week, we'll hop back on. But for right now, I think this kind of sums us up for the week. I don't know what else we could talk about, really. And that's a good thing.
Yep. That's it.
So, yeah. So you guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us these last 2 days. Our Twitter has been very fun to interact with everybody. You guys have asked some really good questions and made some good observations, and new Facebook and YouTube followers. And we're very grateful. So we're just very appreciative. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, but they haven't heard you type and all that. So
Oh my gosh, man.
yeah,
It's like,
I hear it in my sleep.
yeah, my fingers are actually a little tingly on the tips.
Yeah.
But it's all good. I enjoy doing this. I did miss doing trials. I'm a stay-at-home mom. So I was getting really bored before this case popped up, and it's kind of reignited my love of the legal process and following a trial. And I think COVID, has made this trial a lot bigger in the media, I think, than it would have been on its own, just with people being home and not feeling like binging another series. At some point, Netflix gets tiring, and you can only clean out so much. So, the case to me, is just huge. I think a lot of it is from COVID.
Yep.
But yeah, so we're grateful for all the followers. If you guys have any questions, let us know, and we'll try to answer them. But you guys have a great night.
Good night.